infantry. Yeah,
Is that what it is?
yeah.
Oh,
It's owned by a group like 72 or 76 families, and they'll probably never sell because of that. Tony knows all about
Okay, we're being recorded now.
it. Okay.
thanks for.
I'm gonna give one of these to you, Robert. You probably have this, but I found it in our files at the office the other day. It's just something fun to look at. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's cool. The original plot.
Yeah, actually, I think it's an advertisement for selling lots.
Oh, that's cool. Maybe I should contact her. Okay.
Yeah, and get it for you could, when you could back then.
That's for your deposit back.
Be right back. This letter came in at the last minute for agenda item B. It's a letter in support of the renaming from the son of.
You want your seat up?
That's it. Whatever y'all want to do.
About what? Oh, okay. Well, I brought one in case anybody wants it on.
Hey, James.
Hey, how are you? Kitty, I just
Does anybody
gave
ever call you James?
my mom.
Your mom.
What's mad at him?
Pardon me?
I said when she's mad at him.
Yeah, no, that was, then she used the middle name along with it. We're in trouble.
Okay. Yeah, the family. Yeah.
Kitty, I just brought this for fun. I thought everybody enjoyed seeing it. We found it in our files at the office.
What's the,
North Williams.
what?
North Williams.
It's still Halloween. We can wear masks.
Waiting for him, running. They're not gonna pick at me out there in that 10-minute parking area.
No, it went off
Right there. That's a 6.
the 31st.
Oh, what's how many 10 minutes? There was nothing.
Oh, the 10 minutes?
That's all the way in. There's another car.
Yes,
That's what I'm saying.
I bought that 2 years ago. It was, actually, it was 3 years ago now.
So you collecting gravel.
See, my old house had one parking place. So we bought this little old lady from Pittsburgh owned it. And her family was ready for some money. And so my son called her. And they said, oh, yes. They came down. We negotiated. I won't even tell you what I paid for. The one next to it was the one on the corner sold for $900,000. And I bought this one for $450. Glad I didn't have to worry with the tree.
Yeah. I'm trying to negotiate.
So they just needed the money fast, so it worked out good.
Yeah, it works out because you're next door. It's not like you were.
Exactly. Then see, I had my 2 boys wanting to build a house there. Yeah, well, those 2. My youngest son has cancer, so I'm not sure. It's like life expectancy is very up in the air right now.
Yeah.
But that lot was for 800 and some thousand.
Yes.
Check it on that.
The corner one with the tree. And I don't know. mean,
I just
that
brought
was
that along for
years
fun.
ago.
We found that in our files at
What
the
that
office.
tree
Yeah.
was.
And
Well,
I'm
Yeah,
pretty
but
sure
what's the-
it's
what's the
a
street address?
flyer for the sales of those lots.
So it'd be this one, so that'd be
Um,
44, 42,
Dated?
400.
No, I looked for a date on
Uh-huh.
it. I never found a date on it, but you can tell by the photos.
It's on those notes.
And the property, they've got the property of the Oceanic Hotel Company, which I don't know when that thing went away.
Now that I have it.
Yeah.
You know, Pat's parents
They built
bought
my whole house
in Holden Beach
in that lot. They didn't have to
in
clutter the
60,
street.
Yeah,
None of my neighbors were bothered. It was perfect.
69
it's a tough spot. too.
and got a canal lot
Yes.
for like $500.
That's what these.
And they
Same
didn't buy
one.
oceanfront because it was 2,500
Bill sat.
and they couldn't afford it.
And
Yeah.
someone right beside me on the corner. of
$500.
Oh, that's why. this is-
Mr. Creasy's parents,
What's what tree?
who live
I
in
told you
G,
to get one
in
of
the
my
block
yards
G,
that's
Yeah.
paid $500 for it.
But, they had wonderful neighbors. His aunt.
So that was
owns
on the
it.
sound
Yeah,
side.
the house.
Yeah, that was the
But Bill
sound
lived
side.
there till he was in high
Of
school.
course,
I
I'm sure
guess.
that, because
He
Ocean
was,
Avenue's
Mom
not
and
there
Dad
anymore,
raised him
so good thing that you didn't buy
lived
there.
in Wilmington when he was-
Oh, isn't that the truth?
Yeah,
So
Miss Nancy
G, O,
Faye.
N, and L have been victims of just erosion, I guess.
Sure, give him a little bit.
yeah, all of them, L and T are gone
Look,
too.
our house
need
at
to
Holden
relieve
Beach
you of
is
that
2
job,
lots,
Donna.
but the one lot's
Last
like
week,
underwater.
Submerged,
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll trade me a good knee for that job. How about it? A good knee for that job.
For sure.
Thank you, thank you.
Look at the photo. So Leanne's not gonna be here. Is Karen?
Leanne's gonna be,
Right,
she's
Leanne's
here.
remote.
She's here.
What about Karen?
I have no idea.
I saw her on her bike.
You
Here
saw
she
her on a
comes.
bike?
She's
Yeah, but
coming.
that was a couple hours ago.
She's
so-
Yeah,
coming.
she's coming.
Yeah.
That's what took her so long. She rode her bike.
She probably had to. She might have been looking for a park.
You were right. Take care.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you. I don't know.
They, yes, you're done. I think you're here.
How you doing?
How are you? Fun park. Found a- I know. Well, I think where the movies, all that. What are they all?
That and the.
They had stuff down
Two
that-
scenes in one day yesterday down there at Stone Street. It was just nuts all day long.
I had to go by the culverts to check their house for a package and I came out and I was like, where'd all these police? And I was like, oh, they must be filming all over the place.
Just like tourist season.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess I officially need to wait 3 more minutes.
She's
She's video or virtual.
She got, she.
She's looking over your shoulder.
No, but where's the camera?
Right there to the right, to your right.
Oh, there she is. Okay. Any trick or treaters?
Oh, I never have any.
Really?
I'm Pelican Drive. Are you kidding? Don't you remember when you were a little kid, you always plotted the best neighborhood to hit?
Well, you know, we
The
didn't
closest houses.
when my girls were little, but now we had quite a few where we are.
Well, your houses are a little bit.
Well, there's a little more neighborhood.
You've got 2 sides.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, they've just got 1 side. No, the place to go here is
Harbor
Harbor
Island.
Island. I've gone over there. to trick or
Somebody
treat.
told me there are 40
That's the family.
elementary school age kids on South Harbor Island right now.
Oh, I can believe it.
Wow.
40.
That's impressive.
It's
I can believe it.
insane. I wonder where all these young people can afford to live over there now.
We had about 25, 30 maybe. We're starting to get some younger, but when my kids were growing up, we never, I'd sit home with the candy. They'd go to, their buddies in town, but we never had them. But we're starting to get them, which I was glad to see.
Good, that's kind of nice.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Yeah, I do too.
We just get the drunks at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Say what?
We just
In their
get drunks at 2
costumes,
o'clock
I'm
in the
sure.
morning. Yes.
Uh-huh. I'm sure.
On
Just-
Sunday night they did?
Yeah. completely
Oh,
lit.
great. Oh, because they were
It was-
partying, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw them on skateboards throughout the day, like coming back from the bars.
Mm.
Well, on the 5 o'clock, you'd see them on their little, well, not really skate, what are those one-wheeled board looking, you know what I'm talking
Well,
about?
Yeah, yeah.
it's a, it's a quasi skateboard. It's
Okay,
a uniboard.
yeah, that's it.
It's an expensive item too.
Well, I have 5:30, so I'll call the meeting to order. And would you all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our next item of business is the approval of the minutes from the October 5, 2021 meeting. Does any of the board members have any comments or corrections? None? Anybody want to make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Okay, Robert Karen, motion, and Sam seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Thank you. Also, Leanne is still muted.
What do you say?
What'd you say, Robert?
Leanne is mute.
I said Leanne is muted. There you
Oh,
go.
you sure?
There you
there
go.
you go.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, we got you now.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries. So next item is new business, agenda item A, review and discuss a special use permit amendment to expand the existing pool deck area at 6 Marina Street. And we're gonna hear from Tony first.
Chairman Smith, members of the planning board, this is a special use permit. The location for this is going to be at 6 Marina Street. The zoning district is C3 commercial. The total lot size is around a little over 9,000 square feet. The petitioner, Matt Nichols, is representing the property owner of the Wrightsville Yacht Club LLC. They're requesting a special use permit amendment to expand the pool deck at 6 Marina Street. The proposed elevated deck is going to be approximately less than 500 square feet and would be for the members of the club. There is an existing conditional use permit. Some of you may have been on the board when we did this in February the 9th, 2017. This was to expand the existing floating dock office located at the piers at 6 Marina Street. Again, the proposed project is an elevated deck. It's going to be constructed of wood, have a sunscreen over the new deck area, and would be elevated approximately 7'6" above the existing walkway underneath the new deck. Commercial parking, the Wrightsville Yacht Club has 89 parking spaces, and it is in compliance now with parking. No new parking would be required for this deck addition. And on page 9, you have the performance standards, and the attorney will go over these with you, Mr. Nichols, when he gets up 155, 45, 432. These projects come up to us. Again, I did send this out to the department for departmental review again to the fire chief with all the plans and police, and there were no comments from police, fire, and public works had no comments on this. This is consistent with our county land use plan, and the public notice for this meeting has been advertised in the Star News. The site was posted also, and adjacent property owners' letters were sent out. And so far, I have not received any calls or complaints from any adjoining property owners. I don't know if Robert did or not, but I have not received any. Planning staff recommends that the planning board forward a favorable recommendation to the Board of Aldermen approved a special use permit for the Wrightsville Yacht Club located at 6 Marina Street. And in the application, you have this special use application. You have all the site plans and the plans for the elevated deck. And I put in there the existing special use permit for 6 Marina Street. If you got any questions for me, I'll be glad to try to answer them. Matt has a PowerPoint. We can go to that PowerPoint if you'd like, or wait till Matt gets up, whatever you want to do.
I got a couple questions. for Tony.
Sure, go right ahead.
Tony, what's the relevance of the existing CUP to this?
Well, so this is an amendment. So when a commercial site has a existing CUP, you amend that existing one. That's what you do with that one there.
Okay.
So we knew there was one there, so we felt like amending is something you do instead of creating a separate one, having 3 or 4, you just amend it.
Okay. And I've seen this in the past, and it begs the question, where it says you sent it out to departments, no comment. Does that mean no response? Or
Well,
does it mean
they
responded
basically-
that they have no comments.
They just either didn't respond back. This is 2 times. I did it with the text amendment, and I remember Jim said, make sure you send it to the fire chief. So I sent it to the fire chief again, and to the police and to public works. So either the police chief usually will call me up and says, what is this? And I'll talk to him about it. And he just said he didn't have any issues or no, basically they didn't respond back in an email or whatever.
So is that to say that you always get some engagement and therefore a response of something, even if it's no comment? It's not like it's just hanging out there, and certain departments don't even respond.
Yeah, well, most of the time Buck will respond back, no comment. You'll see that in the next one. But sometimes they respond, sometimes they don't. But I know that we sent them out twice to the different departments here.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Tony at this time? Okay, we'll hear from Matt then, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Matt Nichols. I'm here tonight representing the Wrightsville Yacht Club on this special use permit amendment request. And we did have a slide presentation. It'll be similar to what you all saw with our text amendment request last month. But hopefully it provides some more information, and we're certainly here to answer any questions and provide any additional information that the board requests. So with that said, I don't know, Robert, if you can hear me, it's possible to pull up the presentation.
Yes, sir. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Is this the same slide deck that was in the package that was back?
Yes.
Thanks.
Did you change it at all, Matt?
It's a little bit different because I think what looks like maybe what Tony did was put the text amendment slides into your presentation, which is the same renderings and things. But this one was one that we finalized recently, and it's, for the most part, it's going to be similar. But we address in this one more of the special use permit criteria that you all would consider for a special use permit. And as I go through this, I find myself saying special use permit and conditional use permit. Wrightsville Beach for the longest time called it a conditional use permit, but the statute changed very recently. So my understanding is they're just now all called special use permits now. So if I say the wrong thing, they're interchangeable. So we'll move along with the presentation. I don't know, Robert, if it's possible. Do I use this? Advance the slides, or just ask you, Robert?
No, just tell me to progress.
Okay, great. We can move on to the first slide, to the next slide. I think there's a text box, maybe that.
Yeah.
If there's a way to remove that, Robert.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sam. Could you hit okay? Got it on the screen.
Touch screen? Oh, here.
Yeah, on the laptop. I'll be in there in a second.
Yeah, there you go. We got it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Robert. So this slide, very, very similar to what you all saw before, but this is just general vicinity map. This is 6 Marina Street shown highlighted in yellow, and that is where the existing Wrightsville Yacht Club clubhouse is. And I know the board is very familiar with the entire marina area. Next slide, please, Robert. As a recap, that entire marina area, including the marina property, is all zone C3 by the town's zoning map. And that whole general vicinity is C3. Next slide, please, Robert. This is a aerial photograph that showed you before, showing the Wrightsville Yacht Club clubhouse, the Blue Water Waterfront Grill, the marina property, and then the condos to the south. And then the next slide will show the general location of the proposed swimming pool deck expansion. And that's shown in yellow. And that's just a general idea of where the deck is going to be expanded. I would note that we're not expanding it out over the water. I have some slides to show that it's within the footprint of the existing high ground or what's behind the bulkhead, and the photographs will show that. Next slide, please, Robert. Thank you. This is the existing pool today. It's a nice pool. It's not a very big pool. The decking is adequate for sure, but the idea is to expand the decking and allow some additional space for the Wrightsville Yacht Club members to enjoy the beautiful view and the amenities there. But we're not increasing or proposing to increase the size of the swimming pool itself. Next slide, please. This is looking back more toward the south. In the distance would be the Dockside Restaurant. This is actually taken from the sort of the top level of the clubhouse. You'll see in the photographs, the photograph of the clubhouse, but that's sort of a more of an aerial view looking south. Next slide, please. And that's more of a deck, pool deck side view looking south. Next slide, please, Robert. Okay, and this would be standing on the existing pool deck and looking at the clubhouse. Next slide, please. And again, the pool. And again, I know the board members are probably very familiar with the area, but when we're standing on the pool deck, we're elevated. We're up a story, so to speak. So we're off of the walkway. We're off of the decking system, like that's ground level. So that's an elevated pool. Next slide, Robert, please. And this was a newer photograph that Sam actually took this yesterday. This is taken really standing on top of the floating clubhouse office, just to give you an idea. One of the renderings we show sort of has this vantage point, so we wanted to just give you a comparison. A couple of things I point out in this is you can see this kind of shows you the different levels. Just by way of reference, you can see the ice box or the ice holder there. That is on the high ground. As you come sort of closer to where the photograph's being taken, you'll see the decking goes down, and that's sort of the floating docking system. But as you'll see on the next photograph, that the water sort of, the bulkhead is right there where that railing system is between, sort of in front of the ice box. While I was still on this photo, I was going to point out that you can see there's an existing trellis out over the walkway to the right side of the picture, and then there's an existing trellis on the pool deck, the existing pool deck. So you'll see with the renderings, the idea was to keep the trellis and the shading with the canvas type material. But this photograph also shows sort of the outer limit of where the new deck would be, which is consistent with where that trellis is now. You can see the existing boat slip there to the very right of the picture, and you'll see as we go through some of the photographs, that's kind of a reference to see where sort of the vantage point of some of these other photographs. So with that in mind, I'll move to the next photograph, and you can see, great. So there's the ice box I referenced, just as a point of reference. This is looking back toward the blue water, back toward the drawbridge. That railing system right in the middle of the photograph, that's pretty much where the bulkhead is. So the ice and the ice walkway or the walkway that the ice box is on, that's high ground. And then the bulkhead, the water line is about right where that railing is. And then that lower floating dock system is to the left hand. And I recall a question or two, I believe Mr. Briggy brought it up last time about like where the property line is. And I've got some information to show you sort of exactly where that is on the reported map.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the next slide will sort of show
Can I ask you a
you.
question on this picture?
Yes, sir.
That walkway that goes past the ice box, where does it lead to?
To the Blue Water Restaurant.
So that's a pass through all the way?
It's a pass through, I think, that.
It's locked, isn't it?
It's gated.
It's gated.
You can't pass through.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a dead end.
It used to be, but it's completely blocked.
You can visually see through there and see folks eating and things like
Okay.
that, yeah.
Thanks.
We'll go, Robert, if we could go to the next slide, please. Again, point of reference, you'll see the ice box up on the high ground fixed walkway. And then at the bottom of the picture, you can see the water and the sort of the seagrass floating in the water there. And then if we could go to the next photograph, just sort of a different view to show, again, that's the water. It looks like the water might extend under there on these photos, but it doesn't. And you'll see the way the bulkhead is, just the design of the bulkhead. It does go in there just a little bit, but the bulkhead sort of has a variation in it. So, but that's essentially where the water is. We'll go to the next photograph, please, Robert. Okay. This is about the viewpoint of the floating offices looking back toward the parking area, and you can see the dry stack boat storages in the distance. That's that boat slip I was referencing that's sort of on the edge of the property, and you'll see where the proposed new expansion will go out and basically coincide with that railing system there, and that's roughly the property line is where that rail is. We'll go to the next slide, Robert, please. And then this is sort of looking back west, and that's the boat slip. And that gives a really good view of like how the water meets up there with the bulkhead and how the bulkhead does have variation. And you can sort of visualize it going around the corner there and going down, but you can see the high ground there. And again, that's essentially where on that side of the pool that the expansion will go. And we'll show you that in the renderings that are coming up. So we'll go to the next slide, Robert. And then here are the renderings. These are the ones you saw before. They're in your packet. It will be an expansion. It will remain on the high ground, so to speak, within the fixed bulkheaded area. It will not extend out over the water. It's not on the floating system. Michael Kirsting, I think, did a great job with the design of this, and it will really sort of blend in with the existing architecture there and be an enhancement to the functionality of the pool. And I think it'll be a great addition to the existing pool. We're not adding any uses. It's just an expansion of an existing pool. So no new uses are being introduced to the area with it. Next slide, please, Robert. Again, this was shown to you all last month. Just a different viewpoint of the decking. It'll be some shading area with the canvas type on the top. It's very well done, very high quality features. Next slide, please, Robert. It's a different viewpoint. Again, these are conceptual, but it's this is looking back toward the west. You can see there's a proposed step up there of roughly 2 or 3 steps to get up to the elevated walking area off the existing deck. And then the next slide, please. And then here's sort of the aerial view if you were sort of standing up in the area of the elevated existing clubhouse looking down the pool area.
Could I interrupt a
Yes,
second? So anybody up on the new deck will have to exit down to the pool deck. They can't get off the other way at all.
That's correct.
Okay.
That is correct. Yes, sir. Right. So the stairs would go, same stairs bring you up to where the pool is now. Same stairs bring you up to where the top level that the clubhouse itself is not changing there. Let's see, we can go to the next slide, Robert. This was in the packet, and this was sort of a generalized idea of where the decking, or you'll see in the shaded area here. We can move to the next slide, Robert, to sort of highlight the yellow. I was going to have maybe Sam explain, when it comes down to some of the renderings, you can see sort of showed the proposed expansion more going toward the edge, or maybe even sort of beyond the existing pool deck. And my understanding is that has to do some with the engineer drawings. So I may ask Sam to come up here and explain sort of the thought on what exactly, like where that endpoint will be, which I think is still part of the discussion as to how this is going to be actually constructed with the existing conditions and features. But in the next slides, there's 2 slides, I think Robert, if we could go to the next slide. I won't, this one's very technical. This is in the board's packet too. I won't spend much time on this one, but to the next one, I believe is the Woods Engineering, sort of the engineered dimensions on the decking. And this is actually quite a bit more information than you might see with a special use permit. Just by way of background, this sort of came up with the idea that this Wrightsville Yacht Club sort of went through this with the idea that this could just be done, an expansion without going through the text amendment, the CUP process. And that was determined that could not be done. So actually quite a bit has been done as far as figuring out how to build this thing. And you may not be this far along with some special use permits. So I don't know, Sam, if you want to add anything to what we're seeing here as far as the dimension on how far that might go, the existing piling structure. Well, if you could come up here, yeah, just it.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, as we get farther into it, if we're granted this permit, we have to get some subterranean stuff done. There's tieback systems for the bulkhead and for the swimming pool that need to be located, and any of the pillars and the blocks that we need to support the deck to get our live load would have to be located. So it may vary, 18 to 24 inches, depending on where they're all aligned, but well within the property.
What would vary?
Where we put the post lines.
Okay. Would that be outward or just
Just
laterally?
But within your property line.
very.
Sam, the height of the new height of the, I guess, the structure and the sunscreen.
Yes.
What is that height relative to what the current height of that is?
The deck itself would be 7'6", which is code. The bottom of the deck. And then the top screening thing would be about a foot taller than what's existing.
And coming down the south side, that walkway that you're now going to cover,
Yes, sir.
it only has the one little square thing. How far inward is that coming? It looks like you've,
It
Twice the
goes
size or
in
so.
towards the street
Yeah.
to about 5 feet shy of the set of steps going up. So it wouldn't affect going up and down or affect the headroom.
thanks.
Yes, sir. Any other questions?
I'm sorry, I do have a question about the bulkhead. What's the age of the bulkhead and what's the life expectancy? of the bulkhead?
That bulkhead was probably 8 years old, and it's a 50-year wall.
Robert, I don't know if it's possible to pull up this presentation. I think the next slide we were going to show was sort of sort of cross section that would show someone standing under the. Right, if we could go to the next slide, this might address a couple of questions, but that's a cross section of sort of how that would look, the sizing of it. And then, Robert, we could if the board didn't have any questions, I could go on. This was back to the point of like where the property lines are, or the history of it. This is a recorded map. It's in map book 36 at page 345. It's in the New Hanover County Registry, and it was recorded in April of 1997. And it really, there's a lot on this map. And one of the things it does, if we go to the next slide, I'll show you a vicinity. So the area shown in red is the tract that we're talking about with the existing clubhouse, tract C1. And then the next couple slides, I'm going to highlight in on that. But you can see that part of that map, this was reviewed and approved by the town. I think that's Mr. Nesbitt's signature back in '97. And one of the things that this map does, showing the boundary lines of the different tracts. Robert, we could go to the next slide. I think it's important to point out that back then, even on this map, the tract C1 was contemplated as the future site of the Wrightsville Yacht Club pool and clubhouse back then. And then again, there's a lot of detail on that map, but a couple things would be, I've highlighted, starting on the left side of the slide, you can see the south edge of the existing handrail is the property line for that tract. And then as you go to the top of the screen, you'll see that it's showing the property line is 1 foot west of existing floating dock. So the property line on this map is out or in the water. And so the property line is actually, it's significantly further out than we're proposing this. We're not building this right to the line. We're just building it right to the edge of limitation of the high ground. So anyway, I thought it was interesting to show that I think this has always been the intended use of that site is the clubhouse for the Wrightsville Yacht Club. We could go to the next slide, Robert, if there's no other questions. The next series of slides, there's a number of criteria that this board has to consider for any of the conditional or special use permits, and I won't go through those in great detail because I think at the end of the day, it's really up to you all whether you think it's consistent with the ordinances and meets in harmony with the area, meets the criteria. So I won't go through those in all detail, but the things I would highlight would be that what we're proposing would be we're proposing this marina clubhouse expansion within a yacht club that would meet the definitions of the text amendment we proposed last time, and that would include existing marina, 75 wet slips in existence if the alderman approved that text amendment next month. So as you recall, it was a very narrow text amendment, not entirely sure who else this would apply to, but we meet the specific criteria of that proposed amendment, and this would be allowed if approved by the alderman ultimately as an accessory structure to the existing marina under the new ordinance. And I would emphasize too that no additional parking is required or proposed. So we're not having an impact on parking, and we're also not eliminating any public parking spaces. There's metered spaces in that vicinity, but we're not affecting any public parking in that regard. Let's see, Robert, we could go to the next slide, please. Again, I won't go through the different criteria. There's about 9 of them, but the highlights that more at the bottom of the screen, I mentioned there's no change in the proposed use. The existing use has been operated safely for many years. It's we think a relatively minor or some minor expansion to the existing pool deck in the grand scheme of the development. And then we're going to have to build it according to all county, state, town building permits. Meet all the regulations for the actual construction of it. I would point out that, the good point was made earlier about what is the significance of the existing conditional use permit. And I think it is significant that for the existing clubhouse, and when that clubhouse was expanded with the in 2017 to expand the floating dock office, it did go through this board's review, and it went through approved by the alderman. And the alderman made findings of fact then that all the criteria were met for the issuance of a conditional use permit. And I think that's significant whenever the town board is making findings. And so we're coming in perhaps one way to look at it is what we're proposing, does it really alter those findings? And I would suggest that it doesn't. We're not making a situation that's going to create a safety issue or something that's not in harmony with the area. So we can go to the next slide, Robert. Just to emphasize high quality design and architecture, we think it will be a complement to the area. There's adequate existing utilities, obviously, with water, power utility. We're not having to bring anything new to the area. No additional parking required, and we're not having any impact on public parking. Next slide, please, Robert. We would contend we meet all the criteria and then propose a new section, not reducing any public parking. There's not really any public access issue. It's not a public facility. No public access is proposed. And we think we're consistent with the future land use map and the recommendations as shown on the next couple slides, Robert, if we could. We're in a commercial mixed use area that's out of the town's CAMA map. And next slide, please. I won't read through all these, but there's favorable policies in there about promoting a mixture of uses in that vicinity, having pedestrian design, having outdoor common areas, things like that. So we think this is all consistent with the general CAMA plan for that area. On the next slide, this is also in the CAMA plan. I just highlighted the mid part that talked about in the land use compatibility with these sort of mixed use areas that part of the plan is in order to achieve and maintain the optimal use and land values of properties within the mixed use overlay areas. The town may consider design flexibility for sites and buildings. That kind of came into play last week with last month with the text amendment, but the idea to have some design flexibility with these commercial areas. So I'm nearing my end here. I'll speed up. Let's see, the next slide will be, I just pointed a couple things in the staff report that staff noted with the consistency with the CAMA plan and a favorable recommendation. And I think that might be my last slide, Robert. That might be one left. Yeah, I just listed a few benefits here. We think it'll be an enhancement to the club. And for all various reasons I stated before, we appreciate your consideration of the request and glad to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Matt, you referenced the previous CUP. That was an expansion of the dock office, as I understand it.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes,
that's
sir.
all it was. Did that include an increase in the height of that building? There was a building there prior to that, right?
Yes, sir. It must have been. I wasn't representing Wrightsville Yacht Club in that item.
Was
But-
Sam there at that time?
Yes.
Yeah. Was there an increase in the height of that building at the time of that?
Yes, sir, it was. And we had presented the plans at the time.
Okay.
Can't remember what it was. I think it's about 14 feet.
And have these renderings been shared with the people that live on that south side?
Yes, sir. Everything's presented and we have the renderings posted in all of the common areas.
Mhm.
They're members of the club and have pool rights, of course.
The only question I have is about lighting. I'm sure there's probably already lighting along that deck path, but since it's going to be covered and maybe a little bit darker, is there sufficient lighting to light that area under there, or is there not really a
We'll
need?
add lighting,
Lighting.
low voltage, stuff around the edges,
I
all the
figured,
pilings,
yeah.
just kind of cascading around.
Right.
No uplighting. There's currently little solar panel
Yeah.
chips on top of the
Mhm.
stuff, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
I guess I've got two questions for Tony then, if nothing disrupted. Tony, was there any feedback from the letters that were sent out?
Yeah, I had one call today, one of the owners of the duplex, which is right there. The attorney in the end unit just wanted to see the plans. She contacted me an email. I sent the plans and I never heard anything back
Okay.
from that person.
Talking about lighting, page 9, item C, it says, I think I have that right. Adequate lighting based upon the standards set forth in Article 155.9, Part 3 shall be provided to ensure safe movement, et cetera, et cetera. Lighting standards shall be of a type approved by the planning board. Is there some other
No,
standard?
we have, the town has a lighting ordinance. If we put a condition, we'll just say the lighting has to meet the town's lighting ordinance is what we can do. And there are some minimal requirements for safety for piers and docks too. So they have to meet that, and they have to meet our pier lighting ordinance.
Which also has a maximum in it, right?
Yeah, there's some maximum minimums, yes.
I don't understand why we would put any kind of a specific thing in there if there's an ordinance that covers it. What would be the basis for it, if at all?
Well, we do have a lighting ordinance, so to make sure that the petitioner complies with it, we should. put that
Sometimes on
condition
the
in there.
CUPs, especially parking lots, you'll see fixtures and things like that as a part of that, and then they just have to meet our lighting ordinance and then the minimum standards for safety and things like that, so.
So I think one thing.
You
that we-
oversee that they're
We
under all those
have it, and we have
guidelines.
gauges
Yes.
and things like that.
Gotcha.
And it will give Tony some backup when the neighbors call and say, the lighting's too bright,
Yeah.
which happens. I mean, the Harbor Island or the Harbor Inn had really bright lights out there one time, and I think you had to go to them and.
Typically,
them
I've
turned
never
down.
had one in that area at all in the marina, because it's very, you have some at the very end, some residential, but never there. Have a lot on the residential piers and docks and commercial buildings off of Wayne. Yeah.
To answer your question.
Yeah, thanks.
I have one question for you. The reason I asked Matt about, or Sam about how you get off I guess I asked Matt how to get off the new deck. Has the architect calculated the added potential number of people that could be populating that deck?
I don't, yeah, that's a good question. What we'll do is, as a condition, we'll put on there, it has to be reviewed by New Harmony County inspections, myself, and to make sure that there's a couple of exits there already. By adding that square footage there, it's not going to be like it won't be counted as standing room where you have 1 per 5. It'll be one for every, if they do less than 500 square feet, there's not going to be a lot of extra people up there. But that's something that that deck area, we'll look at that to make sure it has the required exits for the number of people.
Yeah, if we could put that condition in there, because, Neil and I have been harping on the fire chief as he reviewed this. Because there's also an exit out of the existing clubhouse. And if there was a fire in that building, it seems to me like those people would pour out of the building onto the pool deck, and then you've got all the pool deck people out there, and then they've all got to get off the pool deck.
Yeah.
Same thing with if fire happened, and God forbid any of this ever happens, but if it does, if one of those boats had a fire or something, those people would be getting off that deck in a hurry.
Yeah, what we'll do, and instead of remember, we contract with New Harmony County Fire Marshals to review commercial plans.
Good.
So sometimes the chief will make comments, sometimes he won't, but he or I will say New Harmony County Fire Marshal will need to review for exit requirements.
Is there a elevator on the other side? So there's also an elevator exit on the opposite end.
Yeah, but the elevators, I don't know if in a 2-story building, but the elevators get shut off during a fire. So
It's an exterior.
It's an open cab.
Oh, it's like a handicap lift?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. But I
There
don't
is
know.
another,
Yeah. But I mean, as long as the fire chief,
yeah.
and the only thing you'd have to do is it's add another exit somehow. Is all you'd have to do. We don't want you to get hurt when you're out there Sunday.
I understand. Gotta have all that covered.
Tony, a question about, we saw that big ice box there on that walkway. You might call it a big ice box. And since that's not a walkthrough, I guess it's not necessarily a pathway, an egress or something. But if that was to become open, it's a gate, I think is what I heard. If that becomes open, is there something that needs to be understood as far as the width of that pathway through there relative to that sitting in that spot?
In all commercial buildings, the fire marshal usually visits every year and they look at exits just like they do at Walmart and places like that. So that's something that they should be looking at, the clearances. I think if that's, well, that's not an exit, maybe there's something, a sign that needs to be put there, no exit, so nobody's going down there. Unless they can get through. I just hadn't been through that area in a while. But, that's a good question also. We could look at that also, so.
And if that gate is something that can be opened, and I have no idea what the pattern of it being opened or not opened is, but then that says sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't, so I don't know, it's just something to flag.
It's probably.
Sam wants to say something.
It's not a gate, it's a fence.
Oh, okay, so it's not a lockable.
That's correct. It can never be used as egress.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So the sign issue that you raised, Tony, makes all the sense.
Yeah, maybe a sign would be the best thing, showing no exit is through there.
That'd be a great idea. Any other questions for Tony or Sam or Matt?
No.
Do we want to proceed with the motion?
I'll move. What?
Hard to turn in the book.
Okay.
That we grant the conditional use permit application CUP 05-01 to the Wrightsville Beach, what? Yacht Club.
Yacht Club, okay.
Wrightsville Yacht Club.
Should that be SUP, not CUP?
Yes.
That's what he said it could be the one, yeah. It's supposed to be SUP now, isn't it?
Right.
And can I ask, would you amend that to include the, said the review of the fire marshal and the lighting issue, that it comply with the,
With the two conditions added, then.
yes,
Fire
Okay,
marshal.
Fire marshal
Yeah.
and the lighting and
the current,
no exit signs.
Yes.
yeah,
The
yeah.
fire marshal was deck loading and the pass through.
Yeah.
Or not pass through.
So is that
That's
good,
good.
Kitty? Okay, so Kitty has made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have two. Who wants to take it?
Go ahead.
Leanne seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Robert, Kitty, did you see Kitty? I'm sorry. Leanne said aye as well. So it's unanimous.
Yes, sir.
Okay. They're done.
Thank
Thank you. Appreciate it. The next agenda item is item B, review and discuss a street renaming application to change Gene Floyd Drive to George Antley Drive. And will we hear from Tony first?
Yeah, oh, totally opposed to this.
Chairman Smith and members of the planning board, this is something new for us. It's new for me, and I think it's new for you too. But there have been individuals in the past coming to the town, wanting to name some town streets or assets. So they created a committee and they come up with some policy. And this is our first one tonight here that you're going to be looking at. But this is a consideration of renaming a portion of Seawater Drive to George Antley Drive, just a portion. In a few minutes, I'll get to the one page that kind of clearly shows where that's located at. But we have this request, and tonight we have Mr. John S. Carey. John was our retired police chief. We have Teresa Fountain that's retired, and then we have Jerry Ludlam. Yes, sir. Okay, retired police officer here tonight. So we renamed part of Seawater Lane from its intersection of Causeway Drive, which is right out here, to the intersection of Gene Floyd, right at the parking office. That's where it would be renamed. The concept of the design change would be consistent with the current road names in size and color and font style. Renaming the portion of Seawater Lane will not have any significant adverse impacts on neighboring town properties, buildings, so we won't have to address anything differently. The proposed renaming affects traffic distance to town hall, public buildings, and park area. The existing town-owned building addresses will not change. So we did send this to departmental for review. The police department is in favor of the renaming. Fire department, chief said it looked good. Public Works, no comment. Parks and Recreation, no comment. Planning board action, please review this request for the renaming of the portion of Seawater Drive. And you see we have the policy and guidelines for naming town assets. You have the application. And on the very last page, you'll see where this section is at. It goes from Causeway Drive up to Gene Floyd here. So it's just that one section there. If you've got any questions for me, I'll be glad to try to answer. I think you have a letter. I think Robert gave you all a letter.
Yes, we do. Well, Leanne doesn't have it, but
I don't
Leanne,
have it.
pardon me?
I don't have it.
I can take a picture and send it through.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay.
You could just paraphrase what it is for her.
Pardon me?
You can paraphrase for her what it is. It's a letter from the daughter.
I'm just sending it to him.
Well, while Karen's doing that, we're happy to hear from the audience if you'd like to speak. And I'm happy to say I was never got in trouble with any of the three of you.
Did you get in trouble with?
Under his coat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the planning board. It's been a while since I've stood up here, coming up on 11 years now.
Wow.
That doesn't seem possible.
It does, time flies.
And he still looks the same.
He does. That's what I see too.
I'm remiss in my timing on this because George Antley passed last year. And I remember back when the loop was named for John Nesbitt after he passed, a member of the board made mention that it would certainly be nice to remember employees so that they knew that they were remembered before they passed. And I did manage to see Chief Antley before he died. And it was a good opportunity. So this struck me after he died that we needed in some form, at least I did, to try to make remembrance for him because of all the things he did for me and other members of the police department and for the town in his tenure as chief for 17 years. I think he was tied with Stinky Williams for the longest serving chief. I think they both served for 17 years. And the building that we're all in now, Chief Antley was instrumental in getting this building from the federal government in 1984. And so the police department was previously in the 400 block of Wayne. And myself and Captain Fountain are the only two police officers that ever work in all three police departments. So with that being in mind, and this building being where it is, and the police department was in that end of town hall, I thought it would be fitting to try to do something for remembering Chief Antley as they come into this drive here. And so I think the header of the memo is wrong. It said changing Gene Floyd Drive. This has nothing to do with Gene.
Okay,
Floyd.
that's why I got confused.
Yes, it has.
Okay,
Yeah,
I thought I just, that, okay.
You have to keep reading for it to make sense.
Yes,
last
well,
night.
okay,
And I
now.
saw that and I thought, oh Lord, people's phones gonna be burning up.
Yeah.
Because it's not that, it's just changed, because I knew Gene Floyd is a fine man. But it's just from the intersection here at Causeway to where it comes up to this end of the building. I didn't want to go around to the left because there's a method to my madness. I'm coming back to see you for that way. Well, yeah, whatever it is. I mean, I thought it was municipal, but I think it's all seawater. I don't really know.
We need to do some corrections in some of those areas. So it's very bad.
This will work
But
out.
I'll be coming back for Everett Ward on that side. So
That's good.
I can't tell you enough in my mind what George Antley did for the town. I mean, he really brought the police department into the 20th century. We were late into the 20th century when we got there, but he brought us there. So if you knew the man, you know that never anybody had a bad word about him. He was just as fine a person as you'd ever know. He started here in 1966. was his career in 1996. He was 100% about the town of Wrightsville Beach. He lived it and breathed it. So that's why I'm here before you tonight to make this request. I think it's a simple request to do. I hope I don't open the floodgates and y'all get tons of requests for different things. And I didn't mean for y'all to have to go through all the work that you did in creating this policy and procedure, but it was probably something that was needed. So when you start doing things like this, it does open the floodgates at times. So I'm glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Did he live on the island?
Sir?
Did he live on the island in the town?
I think he did for a while early on.
He lived out towards, Porter's Neck.
Island Drive for a while.
Yeah, that's what I thought. He lived on Island Drive for a while. And at one time, the old police department, the residence for the chief was above the police department. So yeah, he did live on the beach for a while.
Do you have any plans how to promote this in any way? Because we don't have Illumina News anymore. It's, local matters don't.
Not really, other than, social media. I still maintain contact with friends on former employees of the town by that. And I would certainly be willing to do that. I mean, if there was going to be any fanfare type of thing to do the renaming, that would be great as a tribute to him. I think there would be a ton of people showing up. There might be. It would be nice if they would, but in this day and time, I can't hardly get a RSVP for a family dinner. So you never know. You never know.
I guess social media may have a role there, but this department has one.
I'm not a big user of social media. I'm on Facebook, but I think all the younger people are on Instagram and some of these other things. I don't know anything past. All I can do is get on Facebook. So.
Any other questions? I do have a question for you after we vote. So if there's no other questions, do we have someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to change the street name from Seawater Lane to George Pantley Drive. As noted in the application.
I'll second it.
Okay, Robert, Karen made the motion, Cheryl seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, Robert, that was unanimous.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The question I had is, has the town made any comment to you yet about funding the changing of the signs? Because I'll keep in touch with you. I think maybe we can get the Wrightsville Beach Foundation
That would be great.
to do
I'll
that.
be glad to participate in that if need be.
Okay.
I think it's a fairly simple thing. I don't know who does those signs, I guess. Public Works will know how to do all that. But yeah, I think it's just basically two signs, one on that end and one up here.
Yeah, there wasn't just the two on the posts, right? Yeah.
Probably a little
Go
white
like
paint,
concrete.
black steps.
And aside to that, my daughter was in Raleigh at a flea market and she found 3 of the old Wrightsville Beach signs, street signs.
Oh, you're kidding.
Wayne Boulevard, Causeway Drive, and Bob Sawyer. And guess where my 3 police departments were?
Oh, wow.
Oh,
She
neat.
bought all of those for me.
Oh,
The signs or the
so
actual
neat.
concrete posts?
These were just the signs.
The signs.
Yeah, they were screwed on where I got them at my farm in Kinston. So
Awesome.
thank you so much.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing that.
Yep.
I guess this will go to the board. of
Board,
Aldermen.
Yeah, next month, right, Tony?
Item, when will that be?
It could be in December, but we'll see.
Okay, just-
I'll keep you in touch.
Okay, so I can, maybe a week or so out, I get some of the folks to, well, they don't really be here for that, I guess, whenever there's a change or whatever they may decide to do on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any old business that we know of?
George Antley always shopped with his wife in Harris Teeter. He and I were big Harris Teeter buddies.
This one right down here that was at.
No, actually,
Back there where-
Fortis Necky was always out there with her. And
Oh,
then he was
okay.
in this one, you know, on the weekends, he'd be out there and weekends he'd be in here. But the two of them were always shopping together in Harris Teeter. He was a good family man, not only a good policeman, but a good family man.
Sure thing.
Jerry Love, I worked for Chief Anthony for 11 years with the police department. Every Friday night, midnight shift, Chief Anthony was out on patrol. He was out there with us. He had our backs. Large house parties. I don't know if you folks were familiar with the house parties we used to have down here. I've shut house parties down with 800 people.
Oh, gee.
Chief Anthony would be there with us. Hotel at night, the worst intersection in town, Wayne Causeway. Chief Anthony was out there directing traffic at that intersection. Me and Chief Carey went to see Chief Anthony, laid up there in the hospital. He had almost swiveled away to nothing. I reached down and I grabbed that fellow and I told him, I said, I love you, Chief. And all we ever wanted to do is make you proud of us. That little fellow looked at me, he said, y'all were the ones that made me. We need to remember this fellow is a good man. I'll tell you what, anybody tell me any different, they can have a problem.
Thank you.
I
Thank
think
you.
all the residents felt exactly the same way too. Because I moved to Wrightsville Beach at 67, so he had been here 1 year then.
Right. Anybody on the board have any items they want to bring up?
Yeah.
Neil has one.
It's.
Oh, you don't?
Yes, I do. It's
Yeah.
a pretty small thing, but so since we're moving over to the SUP instead of the CUP, I guess you'll be revising certain
Exactly.
documentation.
Remember, Robert and I told you, 160D is here.
Yeah.
The update to our ordinances.
Mhm.
And we'll try to get it on the December planning board, but that's coming fast. We just got to do some things to, a lot of things to our application. But it's in effect now, no matter
Yeah.
what, so.
So small housekeeping things, like one of the documents, there's a signature page. I think it's on the application, but it doesn't get the name of the person that actually signed it. Signatures are notoriously not anything you can figure out who the person was, so it's just like adding that kind of a line.
Okay, we'll look at it.
And I think a question about the numbering, it was CUP 05, whatever the number was. Is that, how does that numbering?
Sylvia gives me those numbers. In
Okay.
other words, the one that was, the ordinance numbers and things like, she's, gives me those numbers, so she's the one that puts.
So
those
she has
numbers.
some major
Yeah, she has,
representation.
yes, she's the
Okay.
one that keeps up with those.
Thanks.
Just
Go
have
ahead.
one,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to make a big deal about it tonight, but Mr. Nichols is notorious for bringing stuff. I mean, what we got in our packet. And I, you know, and look, I know enough about it. I wasn't gonna say anything, but half the stuff he had up there, we didn't have in our packet, and he's got to stop doing that.
Yeah, in other words, I got the application for the conditional use permit or CUP. This was what was in the application. And we got this afternoon, you know, he sent it to us this afternoon, so this is exactly what I got, so. And
I
that's
saw a
why-
little bit in his defense. I think he was blown away at the last meeting. I think he was overly trying to show everything he possibly could. This particular time, I think he was,
Yeah,
I agree with you.
yeah, I think he was just so,
yeah.
Yeah, and I,
Maybe the caution here is to he specifically and others is if you're gonna come in here with a presentation, keep it down to 5 slides and don't, try to
Or
rewrite the whole
have him in
filing.
order in the packet is what he's,
Well,
we're over here, digging through, trying to follow along, and it's just, like I said, I'm familiar with the property. It made it a little easier for me, but if you didn't, you'd struggle to follow what he was. Anyway.
I think he's hard to follow, period.
I disagree with that.
I'm thinking people know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, are you referring, Katie, to just this?
I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. but
No,
it's-
are you referring to
Did.
this petitioner, like this presenter? Because I don't recall that we have trouble following others.
I think it's him.
Yeah, because I
I've known
know,
him for so many years, and they send him over and over and over, and he's always kind of, he's a really nice guy, but he's very difficult to follow.
yeah,
I think he creates sometimes more
Yes.
I was gonna
conflicting
ask,
statements by the way he approaches.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask the board, after what we went through last month, did we make a mistake by bifurcating the text amendment and then the SUP? Because remember, we always used to hear them all at one night, and then we went back and we said, let's split them up because it'd be less confusing, but it wasn't less confusing. It made it more confusing in this case.
Well, yeah,
I prefer it the way it is right now and not change
Leave
it.
it the way it is.
But
the
I
last
think-
time could have gone a whole lot faster if we hadn't kind of gotten off track.
True.
I think he took us off track. I mean, I know
Well, I
I was
think some
virtual
people-
and I was feeling like,
Some people came in off track.
I was certainly not having the benefit of even seeing anything.
Oh, yeah,
clearly
and that's why
in front of me.
I am a disabled and I have to see it, I can't just hear it, I have to see it. So I need to have that.
Did you feel that stuff he showed you tonight you couldn't deal with?
No, but I struggled with, I spent more time trying to find it in the packet than I did paying attention to what he did. And I feel bad for Leanne because she doesn't get to see all that stuff as easily. If you're remote, it's got to be a nightmare.
No, I followed him. I mean, it's not that I don't follow him. And I saw the slide was fine. It was just the same thing over and over and over. I mean,
It was a
so
lot of repetition.
Yeah, we could done with less pictures.
Yeah, a lot of repetition.
But I'm agreeing with you ladies. I think you
I think he
felt
was
the
very-
need to
I think
overcompensate
you
from
did too.
last time. Yeah. Anyway, it's just, they need to try to get what they're gonna present to us where we can get that ahead rather than,
Tony, that's been going on for so many years. Do
I
they
know.
walk into a board meeting and start passing out all this stuff and you're like, what? I mean, this thing.
Yeah, we
I
got
think
one of
it's in our
those.
best
ones
interest.
from him.
Mhm.
You get the feeling like, is there some new information here I'm missing? Because I've studied the package and since we had the previous month. So now all of a sudden you say, well, I have to really be tuned in to what he's trying to say, which is it new or is it not new?
right.
And it wasn't
it's-
really new.
It's not in their best interest because if you get into that corner where you feel like you're confused or is it new or not,
Yes,
push it off. We'll see you next month.
it's certainly to their disadvantage to.
Right. Anyway,
I don't think putting the two together in the same meeting, it only makes it worse. Which is, I think, what I'm trying to exit that.
Now, this one was kind of an exception because it was easy, basically.
Yeah, this one was
But if
easier
it's
than
not
others.
easy, separated is good.
Maybe take them case by case, Tony.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, at the last meeting, and this is gonna happen, like I say, I had a we're gonna have a CUP coming up, excuse me, a SUP coming up. The person wanted us to hear it in December, and he didn't have everything together for the coffee shop and the C5. I said, it's just rushing it too much, so he's promised to have it in by December, where we will hear it in January, but it's for a potential coffee shop in that, where we just heard.
Oh,
the text
okay.
on that.
Yeah.
I did have one other quick item. I was going through my notes and I wanted to ask you, Tony, where you feel we wound up with that we beat the platforms to death, the AC platforms. Is that in the hands of the alderman now?
No, it's not. It's in the hands of me, and I'm sorry I hadn't passed it on. And I know a couple meetings ago, I'll make myself a note of that and.
Okay, I just want to make sure
It's in
that,
my hands.
that we were thinking they had it and they
No,
were
they
thinking
have
we
not.
had it. So, okay, great, thank you. That's all I had.
I make a
Anybody?
motion to adjourn.
Okay,
I'll make a
Cheryl,
motion to adjourn.
what she said?
She said she's gonna make a motion to adjourn. We already beat you to it.
No, it's all right. See, I think I'm behind.
Okay, well, Cheryl made a motion to adjourn, Sam seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pardon me?
See,
See you in December.
what's with the bevy?
Right, yeah.
The
yeah.
bevy one?
I have the actual,
It's like they've stopped.
We're
the
waiting on this.
actual,
I mean, I don't know.
it was done.
You know, they got that
1920.
outside and it looked really great, and then
Yeah.
they've just like done nothing.
There have been, you know, I don't know, but it's in their hands, and we're waiting on them to just give us the stuff to building permit.
Okay. I know we jumped through a lot of hoops, and it's kind of like, I hadn't done anything. Of course, they